What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Guys, this video we're going to be going over one of my favorite go-to post-spawn summertime techniques. Now, this is going to be a finesse technique that definitely gets a lot more bites than any other technique that I will throw. This is my go-to, whether it's a brush pile, whether I'm fishing around docks, whether I'm fishing just around anything really, tires, trees. Right now is a very variable time. You know, shad spawn's going on, bluegill spawn's going on, but if I can key in on those fish that are starting to move offshore, away from their spawning areas, away from guarding their fry, this is one of my go-to techniques. Let's go ahead, jump into it, guys. I'm gonna be talking about finesse swim baits. Now, there's two really different schools of thought here. Now, typically when I am choosing out my finesse swim baits in the post spawn around the early summertime, typically I'm going to be focusing on brush pile fish. Now, as fish move out of their spawning areas, away from the backs of the creeks, and start moving out towards your secondaries and main lake areas, they're going to be holding on a lot of the vertical cover. Whether this is a dock area that has like tie downs, whether it's brush piles, suspended brush, this is a great technique to pull those fish out of there, imitate a specific type of shad or a specific wounded shad or something like that that they are heavily feeding up on. My go-to heads for these are going to range from these two right here. It is going to be the Megabass Okashira screw head. See if everything focuses there. Yep, cool. Okashira screw head, and this is a 1/8 ounce. And I also have the Owner range roller jig heads right here. Very hard to find, guys. We do have a couple of these left in stock. We've got 1/8 and 3/32. So these are my two go-tos for two different reasons. Now, I'm going to be talking about the baits, the rods, the reels, the line, kind of all that, but I do want to focus on these two right here. Now, the main reason I am choosing these jig heads over a traditional ball head or over a traditional just swim bait head is that these two jig heads right here provide a secondary action in the bait. Now, the secondary action in your baits during the post-spawn time and early summertime is extremely important. There's a lot of bait moving up shallow, the water's starting to turn back over, and that shad is pushing up towards the surface. There's a ton of shad, so you have to stand out just a little bit from all the competition. Why is a fish going to eat your lure over the millions of other real deals? You know, of course, the screw head does look like a shad. I love the paint on it. The range roller is going to be kind of just your raw lead. Now, again, secondary action. When it comes to the baits, guys, I am going to pick either one of these two baits, and let's talk about the baits real quick. First off is the Keitch Easy Shiner. This can be any size you really want. I really love the chartreuse one. It really draws in a lot of bites, gets the bass's attention, and I'm going to be talking about this specific action a little more in just a second. My second choice is going to be the Megabass Hazedong shads. Now, these are different from the spark shads, and I'm going to talk about it here. The Hazedong shads we got in a couple colors. This is a 3-inch. We also have the 4.2-inch, depending on your forage that you are targeting and fishing around. Typically, if I am specific on a brush pile, trying to pull a fish out, I'm going to be using the smaller one. If I'm using forward-facing sonar, the smaller one is going to be a little bit better, especially if you can put it right on its head. They're going to eat it almost every single time. So the 3-inch, great for that. And the 4.2-inch is great for covering a wider area of water. If you're fishing around a brush pile and those fish are actively coming out of that brush and hitting stuff, this bigger presence, bigger bait here will definitely draw in a lot more of those bites. Now, specifically, more on these two baits. These two baits here have a specific action. It is not really a shimmy that most swim baits have. You know, you think of your fat impacts, you think of something like your, dropped those. You think of something like your spark shads. These really have just a little bit of head wobble, and they have a little bit of tail kick, right? So the tail kick is the main driver in these baits. The difference between the spark shad and the Hazedong is that the Hazedong has more of that rolling side to side action. And I say rolling, you're gonna connect it back to the range roller. Of course, that secondary action where that bait is really kind of just rolling, tipping side to side, adding a little flutter in there, just a little flick of the rod, and it really entices those fish into eating. That's why I like the Hazedongs and the Easy Shiner over something that is very round or flat, really, like the Spark Shad, or even like a Shad Impact fat version, something like that, or like a Rage Swimmer, right? So these are the main baits that I'm throwing, the Hazedong and the Easy Shiner. Now, of course, depending on which bait you have, depends on which hook you use. So the 3-inch Hazedong, absolutely love the screw head. You can use the 1/16 ounce if you've got light enough line. Really, the 1/8 overall is a great option for me. I really love this one right here. We only have, I think, whatever color head this is. This is Tennessee Shad. I think that's the only one we have currently in stock at the moment. But range rollers, it's got a little bit longer shank hook, so you can throw the 4.2 inch on these. You can throw really a wide variety of different jig heads. These are going to give you the most secondary action of all the ones we do have. So I highly suggest the range rollers and the screw heads. That's a little bit about the baits. Now, when it comes down to fishing these specifically around different cover, there is a little variability on which rods you want to use. The reels, you do want to have in my opinion, a smaller reel, a 2500 or even like barely a 3000, guys. You don't need to bring in a just gob ton of line most of the time, especially with these fish that are moving around quite a bit. Now, here we go, talking about the rods. Like I said, there's really multiple schools of thought on this. I know a lot of my buddies like to throw a little bit shorter rods. My opinion, I love a little bit longer rod to get me extra casting distance, especially with these highly pressured fish. Now I'm gonna kind of go in no particular order, kind of trying to keep the brands together, but you do want a medium light to a medium rod, whether it's a 6'11", 7'6", doesn't really matter too much. It's all based on personal preference. You will get a little extra casting distance and ease of casting out of a longer rod, but as long as this rod has a nice soft tip, as well as a full parabolic bend, maybe a little backbone like this one right here, you're gonna be pretty well set. Now this one right here is the Miller rods, Carl Jochimson's lineup of rods from Miller. Guys, out of Australia, handcrafted and everything, super dope rods. Our customers absolutely love these. If you want to head over to the website, pick them up, we highly appreciate we highly appreciate it. But this one right here is called the Flick Freak. Now this one is a 6'10" rod, medium light-ish. It's got a great soft tip on it. It's got a lot of backbone starting to go way down here. It has a ton of guides, so it's gonna allow you to make really precise and accurate casts. It has the no tangle guides on them as well. Absolutely love the Miller rods, and it's at a pretty good price point around, I think it's like $315, something like that. So definitely very affordable. Absolutely love these rods. Again, a lot of eyes on those Miller rods. Next up, let's talk about this one right here. So this one is a newer rod. If you kept up with us on the YouTube here, you would know that we got the Megabass Orochi X10 rods. This one right here is a great one. Now, this one here is the Medusa, I believe. Yep, this is the Medusa. This is a F3 ST rod, as well as 6'11", so 1 inch longer than the Miller. It's going to be very similar. It's got a little more backbone starting like way back here, but it has a great overall parabolic bend. It is very soft at the tip section, and it is extremely sensitive. Same thing, it's going to have the no tangle guides going down, and this thing right here is a badass feeling rod. Now, I do love the grip section on this. I love the cork. I do like the color scheme, of course, not that it matters too much, and it has a little bit shorter butt on it. So when it comes to the shorter butt, especially with this technique, you're not gonna have that leverage for casting as much, which isn't a bad thing. You know, when I am reeling, typically my full hand is gonna be above the reel like this anyway. So I don't really need that back section too much. But overall, Megabass Orochi X10, extremely sensitive. Highly recommend you to give the Medusa a try if you are a Megabass geek. All right, and it has a very thin tip, so for throwing these lighter lures, definitely a plus. Moving on here to some Daiwa. If you're looking for a great budget-friendly forward-facing sonar, or really just kind of jig minnow-y type things, this one right here. You can't order these online, but if you want to head over to the website, lakeprotackle.com, you guys can check out all of our listings on these. If you want to call in, we can place you a custom order for these, or if you're close to the shop here, definitely come by the shop, pick them up. This is the Daiwa Kage. Now, if you haven't heard of the Kage rods, you're missing out. For $189 to $200, this is a rod that you are getting the full amount and more. This rod is extremely light, extremely sensitive, full cork. All of them really have cork. Very, very well-made rods. Now, again, eyes, you're gonna have the no tangle eyes, love that, or guides. Has a ton of guides running down the rod, extremely sensitive. This one specifically is going to be the drop shot rod, 7'1" medium light. This ticks all my boxes. It has still a little bit of backbone, a little bit heavier in power than the last two we talked about, but still great parabolic bend, very soft tip on it. So if you are looking for a budget rod, this is one of my go-tos almost any time. Around 200 bucks, perfect rod for that. You can't order them online, but you can call in and we can get you set up with one, guys. Next up, another Daiwa. We've got the Daiwa Steez. This is the Finesse Game Special. Now, this rod is going to seem faster than it is when you get it right off the bat. Before you spool it up, this rod does feel faster. It has AGS guides, guys. It has a amazing parabolic bend to it. Check this out. Look at that. It has a little more backbone standing here in the store. But when you spool it up, when you put line through it, it is going to bend amazingly. You can cast extreme distances with this one right here. This is a 7'1" medium light, so basically exactly the same as that Kage, but extremely sensitive. If you're looking for an extremely light rod, again, AGS guides on that, definitely hit that one up. Next up, last three here. We got one Shimano. This is the X Pride 7'6" medium light. So this is going to be going over to that longer style of rod that I really, really enjoy. This thing, badass, guys. I love this rod. Very, very soft tip. Overall, again, a medium light. Has a little bit of backbone starting at the second guide, guys. Check that out. Love it. You're going to get a good hook set. And this rod right here, again, very, very affordable and kind of in that price range where I'm like, man, I'm paying a little bit extra from that $200, but I'm getting a whole lot more. Of course, Spiral X, love the cork, love the carbon monocle grip at the back here. Definitely check this one out. All right, moving along into the bouginess. Of course, we've got two NRX Pluses here. This one back down to that shorter style. This is an 822S DSR. So this is kind of like their drop shot rod, but very similarly, you guys, I use the drop shot rod pretty interchangeably with like forward facing sonar stuff, especially at the shorter end. Now, this one here, I believe 82, what is it? 6'10", cork, of course, Spiral X, NRX Plus, extremely light, sensitive. It's got the recoil guides on it. You can bend those down, step on them. They're not gonna break on you. Very, very limber rod, guys. It has a great, super, super soft tip to let that fish take the bait. It loads and then boom, you hit them with a little backbone in the back end here. So 822 DSR, as well as, again, one of my favorites here, 7'6". This is a 2-power, so this is a 902 jig worm. NRX Plus, guys. Again, love the cork, love the NRX Plus. Very, very comfortable grip. I love how this rod feels in my hand. Overall, I mean, for a 7'6", it is extremely balanced. It's going to have a very, very soft tip section running pretty far down into the rod. You're going to have a little bit of backbone starting kind of at the second guide, of course. So again, it's going to be kind of that drop shot, forward-facing sonar style. If you talk to a lot of the Canadians that fish for smallmouth and fish with these jig minnow type things a lot more, you're going to see that they're starting to use a little bit longer rod. A lot of the elites, Bass Pro Tour guys are starting to learn this as well. A little bit longer rod, maybe not a 7'6" for a lot of them, but around a 7'3", 7'4" is going to be their go-tos. But for me, guys, 902, very, very comfortable. I love this rod right here. Now, getting into the reels, again, like I said, you don't need anything super specific. As long as it is a 2,500 to a 3,000, you're going to be pretty good. Having a little bit more line capacity on the 3,000 isn't a bad thing. Usually 3,000s also have a little bit faster retrieve than the 2,500 most of the time. But for me, the 2,500 gets the job done. I'm typically bringing in enough line to where it doesn't make a huge difference. I'm keeping constant tension. And of course, with the medium light and moderate action that the rods have, you're going to keep them pinned throughout the whole fight. Now, when it comes to braid, you want to make sure you have some higher end braid, guys. You can't skimp out on this. You got to make sure you're throwing the right stuff for this technique. I like the Seagar Smackdown 10 pound in flash green. This is just a go-to overall for all my spinning setups. Another great option is going to be the Sunline Overwatch. This stuff here is metered and it is also very, very thin. Now, the Sunline Overwatch 12 to 15 pound is going to be very similar to like the 10 pound here. So the lighter you can go, the better with this technique. You don't need 8 like this one here. I would say throw 12 or 10. You're going to still be able to get it in and around brush piles, fish it through the heavy cover, and you'll still be good. So make sure you have some higher end, more specific spinning reel line for your spinning setups. So braided line. And when it comes to a leader, there is a big difference in the type of lines that I like to throw. Normally, for most spinning techniques, especially bottom contact ones, I would suggest the Grand Max. Now, this is JDM Seagar over from Japan. This is a leader-specific line. Unlike Gold Label and unlike Tatsu, this stuff is a little bit harder, a little more abrasion resistant. It's going to have less shock value in it. So this is not one I would recommend for this technique. I want a little bit of stretch in my line. We don't carry Gold Label, which I would recommend for this specific technique, but when it comes down to it, a great option since we don't have Gold Label in stock is going to be the Tatsu or even a Brazex. These two lines are going to have a little bit of give in them. They're going to have a little bit of shock value, very abrasion resistant still. The Tatsu overall has not failed me yet. So when I'm fishing this technique, whether it is a 3/32 or 1/8 ounce, I'm gonna go as small as I can get. I've gotten away with 12 pound, I've gotten away with 10 pound, I've gotten away with 8 pounds. Kind of when I go down to 6 pound, it gets kind of dicey, especially around docks and chains and stuff like that. But 8 pounds usually doesn't break on me, 10 pound doesn't break on me. So with these techniques, guys, of course, make sure you have the right line for whatever you're fishing, whether it's going to be like a 4-inch, whether it's the 4.2, whether it's a 3-inch. Kind of just depends. The bigger your bait, the more presence it's going to have. So I typically bring those a little bit farther away from the fish. Again, if you want to watch kind of my FFS forward facing sonar videos and kind of how your baits range on a scale on how far and how fast you should fish them away from the fish, definitely check those out on the website or on the YouTube channel here, as well as check out all the cool stuff on the website. So when it comes to like rigging these lures up, of course, I figure it's pretty common knowledge, but you know, I'm gonna throw it in the video, of course, just to kind of show y'all how to really correctly thread these on. I know there's a lot of videos out there that kind of show how to do this, little tips and tricks and stuff. But I was like, you know, I'll be nice this time, in case you don't know how to rig one of these up. And if you do want to purchase the tackle that I rig up here, and I'll show you at the end, if you want to purchase the ones that I used, you can head over to the website, type in demo. It's going to be a whole package with all the baits that I use here, and you can buy them at a little discounted rate. So I'm going to go ahead and try to open up these screw heads here, get these open. Now, screw heads, again, they're going to provide a little bit of that secondary action that we talked about. I love the little spinner on it. It adds a little flash as well. So I'm going to pull this guy out here. Now, it might look a little small, of course, the head here compared to the jig head. Don't worry, it's still going to look very natural to the fish. Think about this. It's kind of like a crappie jig with this little 3-inch size. So what I'm going to do first is, especially with the screw head, you don't want to block the blade, right? So you want to make sure when you line this up that the plastic doesn't push into the blade like this. You want it to stop a little bit before. So when you mark this, I'm going to hold it here. I'm going to kind of give myself a visual reference on where the bait is coming out of the, or where the hook's coming out of the plastic. So I'm going to see it's about right there. Put a little mark down on it. pop it just a little bit, and now I can see that there is, let me zoom in just a hair for y'all. There we go. Sorry, the camera's a little shaky too. Oh, maybe I have to zoom out. Just a hair. There we go. All right, so I put a little mark there, so I kind of know exactly where it needs to pop out. And you want to make sure too that you don't go too far in. So I'm gonna go directly down, and I'm gonna go right in the nose. I'm gonna hold it straight like this, up and down, and I am just gonna keep pushing straight into the plastic, trying not to tilt it, going straight down the seam, and I'm going to pop out right where I put my mark, directly in the center of the bait there. And I kind of got off just a hair because I'm looking from behind a camera. There we go. That's right in the center. I'm gonna push that up, and you can see that blade's still free to spin, and that is your finished bait with the Hazedong 3-inch. So again, I'm gonna be putting the Hazedong screw heads, I'm gonna be putting the 3-inchers in there, and I'm also gonna be putting range rollers and these easy shiners in there. So you're gonna get a whole little package there. Range rollers comes 4 to a pack, really enjoy that. So I'm gonna take out a range roller here, get that. And again, the neat thing about the range rollers is that they have that keeled head at the top, allows that bait to really just have a nice little shimmy on it. So we're gonna take these guys, pop them open. These are a little more delicate than the Hazedongs. They're a lot softer plastic, which really gives them a great lifelike action. And they are covered in squid juice, so my hands are very, very squiddy now. The nice thing about the Keitch though is they have a little extra room to play with. Again, these are 4-inchers. One thing you can do is cut off a little bit of the bait, and it gives you a little more area to work with. But again, same process. I'm gonna map it out. I'm gonna take my hook, put a little slit there, give myself a little reference point where to come out. And one thing too with the range roller, it has this little tooth at the bottom, so you wanna make sure you don't go too low in the bait to where it pops out. You wanna make sure you have it kinda in that upper section. So see if I can do it from behind the camera here without messing up. I'm gonna go right in the very, very tip top of this bait to allow those little keepers not to penetrate through. Keep going. Make sure it comes out in the middle of the bait. Again, a little bit off there, but before I push it all the way up, I can actually adjust a hair. Go push it up, and boom, look at that. So this one, again, it kind of messed up a little bit going in, but that's okay. I'm gonna try to do it a little bit better for y'all. That was pretty terrible. It is hard to do this from behind a camera, looking through a camera. So try it one more time here. There we go. That was actually a whole lot better. I did mess up just a little bit. You can see how that hook is angled up like that. That's not something that hurts the action too much. It definitely doesn't really help it, but if you can work your bait straight down and then come out, that is a more desired rigging option. But again, it doesn't look terrible. You do get a little bit more gap right here, which I am not opposed to be honest. Again, reeling this straight or just working it like a normal forward-facing sonar jig minnow where it is kind of keeled to allow the bait to stroll side to side. That is going to give you the best secondary action for these style baits. So in this package, I'm going to include the Keitch, the range rollers, include the screw heads, and include this little pack as well of the Hazedong Shad. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this little rigging tutorial. I'm going to try to make this one as straight as possible for y'all, and you can go order it online for quite a bit of a discount because I messed that one up pretty bad. So guys, I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time. But guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you love what we're doing here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Like Pro Tackle. See you guys.